Hey there, history buffs. Welcome back to WTF History, where we peel back the dusty pages of the past to uncover stories so wild they'll make your head spin. Today, we're diving into the dark, twisted tale of Ferdinand VII, a king whose reign was less about ruling and more about ruining himself, his wives, and an entire empire. Picture this. It's September 29th, 1833, and the royal palace in Madrid is cloaked in a deathly hush. In the royal chambers, a 48-year-old man lies writhing on his bed, his body a battlefield of oozing ulcers and unbearable pain. His groans haunt the palace halls, and even his doctors can barely stand to be near him. How did a king, born to lead one of Europe's greatest powers, end up as the most despised figure in Spanish history? Let's rewind to the beginning and unravel this sordid saga. Ferdinand came into the world on October 14th, 1784, in a Spain that still held its head high as a global powerhouse. The son of King Charles IV and Queen Maria Louisa of Parma, he was raised in a palace that was less a seat of governance and more a circus of scandal. The court was a hotbed of intrigue, with Maria Louisa's notorious affair with Manuel Godoy, a slick-talking guard-turned-de facto ruler, setting the tone. This was the playground where young Ferdinand learned how power worked, or rather, how it could be twisted. From an early age, he showed a chilling streak of cruelty. At 10, while other kids might be chasing dreams of knighthood, Ferdinand was torturing cats for kicks and forcing servants into humiliating games just to watch them squirm. His tutors tried to instill some sense of responsibility, but Ferdinand wasn't interested. Books? Boring. Statecraft? Yawn. His real passion was far creepier. He had secret holes drilled in palace walls so he could spy on courtiers in their most private moments. This wasn't just a mischievous kid. This was a prince with a darkness that ran deep. As Ferdinand grew into his teens, that darkness only got worse. The court was already a snake pit of gossip and betrayal, but he took it to a whole new level. His tutors, desperate to curb his sadistic tendencies, were either sacked or shipped off when they dared stand up to him. With no one to check him, Ferdinand's impulses ran wild. He didn't care about preparing to rule an empire. His world revolved around power, control, and satisfying his every whim. By the time he was 18, the court was buzzing with whispers about the prince's disturbing behavior. Spain was still a major player on the world stage, but its future king was more focused on his own twisted desires than the fate of the nation. And those desires? They were about to take a turn from bad to downright horrifying. In 1802, Ferdinand was married off to his cousin, Maria Antonia of Naples, in a match meant to tame his wild ways. She was young, devout, and educated, everything a future queen should be. But Ferdinand saw her as a toy, not a partner. Court records paint a grim picture. He subjected Maria Antonia to degrading, humiliating acts that left her shattered. She withdrew from public life, hiding in her chambers to escape her husband's cruelty, but there was no real escape. Ferdinand's power as heir to the throne meant he could do whatever he wanted, and he did. By 1806, Maria Antonia was dead at just 21. The official story was tuberculosis. But the court wasn't fooled. Rumors of poison or a broken heart spread like wildfire. Ferdinand's response? A cold, callous shrug, reportedly saying he was now free to seek more interesting pleasures. That's the kind of man we're dealing with here. Marriage didn't slow Ferdinand down. It only emboldened him. With the crown within reach, he turned the palace into his personal playground. Ladies in waiting, noblemen's wives, it didn't matter. If Ferdinand wanted them, he took them, using blackmail as his weapon of choice. He'd threatened to ruin families, strip titles, or worse, unless women complied. He had a sick obsession with married women, not for love, but because seducing them was a way to dominate their husbands. Nobles were forced to swallow their pride, watching helplessly as their wives were summoned to the prince's chambers, all to keep their place at court. The palace became a pressure cooker of shame, fear, and whispered scandals, with Ferdinand pulling every string. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, the world around him started to crumble, giving him even more opportunities to show his true colors. The year 1808 brought chaos to Spain with Napoleon's invasion, a moment that could have forged a hero. Instead, it revealed a coward. When the Aranjuez mutiny forced his father, Charles IV, to abdicate, Ferdinand didn't rally the nation against the French. No, he slunk off to Bayonne to grovel at Napoleon's feet, offering to hand over Spain in exchange for personal safety and a cushy life. French accounts of the meeting are scathing. Ferdinand begged, pleaded, and offered any concession to save himself. Even Napoleon, no stranger to spineless royals, was stunned, calling him one of the most despicable men to ever sit on a throne. Exiled to the Château d'Auvergne in France, Ferdinand didn't plot Spain's comeback. He lived in luxury on Napoleon's dime, throwing lavish parties, seducing French servants, and diving deeper into debauchery. Letters intercepted by French spies show him begging for female entertainment, while Spain fought for its life. Oh, and that venereal disease he picked up? Courtesy of a local prostitute. This was the man who was supposed to save Spain. While Ferdinand was living it up in exile, Spain was bleeding. The people fought tooth and nail to expel the French, and by 1814, they succeeded. Ferdinand returned to a nation desperate for leadership, hoping their king would bring a new era of stability. Instead, he brought tyranny. One of his first acts was to revive the Inquisition, not out of faith, but because it gave him a weapon to crush enemies and, you guessed it, coerce more women. Accuse someone of heresy, and their family was at his mercy. It was blackmail dressed up as piety, and Ferdinand wielded it like a pro. His second marriage, to Isabel of Banza in 1816, was another disaster. The 19-year-old Portuguese princess was sold to Ferdinand to seal a political alliance, but she became his next victim. The court, once a symbol of prestige, turned into a cesspool of corruption. Ferdinand set up a system where loyalty was bought with favors, specifically the kind involving wives and daughters. Want the high-ranking post? Better have a sister or wife to offer. The king's chambers became an informal harem, filled with women who had no choice but to comply. Ferdinand's depravity wasn't just about excess, it was about control, and it was sickeningly creative. Secret court documents, uncovered centuries later, describe rituals so twisted they shocked even the most jaded nobles. He'd force his victims to perform degrading acts in front of other courtiers, turning private moments into public spectacles for his amusement. It was sadistic, it was cruel, and it was all about power. Isabel, his second wife, didn't survive long. By 1818, she was dead at 21, her body bearing signs of trauma and her spirit crushed. Her confessor later revealed she'd prayed for death to escape her husband's torment. Ferdinand didn't bat an eye. He was already planning his next marriage. Maria Josepha Amalia of Saxony, his third wife, was just 20 when she was handed over to him in 1819. 2 years later, she was dead, too, under circumstances that screamed foul play. 3 wives, 3 tragedies, and Ferdinand was just getting started. By the 1820s, Ferdinand's reign was a masterclass in moral decay. His obsession with virgins became a grim legend. Families in poverty were offered rewards to hand over their daughters, and even nuns weren't safe. He'd threatened to shut down convents unless they broke their vows, using his power to bend everyone to his will. Spain, meanwhile, was falling apart. The empire was crumbling as Latin American colonies declared independence one by one. The economy tanked, and the people starved, but Ferdinand was too busy indulging his appetites to notice. His court was a circus of corruption, with ministers chosen not for their skills, but for the beauty of their wives or daughters. The palace was less a seat of power and more a stage for Ferdinand's darkest fantasies. And yet, even as Spain collapsed, he pushed further, chasing pleasures so extreme they defied the already loose standards of the time. The man was a walking catastrophe, and the worst was yet to come. In 1829, Ferdinand married his fourth wife. Maria Christina of Bourbon II Sicilies, a 23-year-old who got a grim kind of luck. By this point, Ferdinand was a wreck. Syphilis, likely picked up from one of his countless encounters, was ravaging his body and mind. His days of terrorizing the court were waning, not because he'd changed, but because he physically couldn't keep up. His final years were a grotesque spectacle. Ulcers covered his skin, his mind deteriorated, and the once feared king was reduced to a stinking, pain-racked shell. The court avoided him, repelled by the smell and the shame of his condition. By September 1833, Ferdinand VII was alone, abandoned by the courtiers he'd once controlled and the victims he'd tormented. When death finally came on the 29th, it was a mercy to everyone but him. His only legitimate heir, his daughter Isabel II, inherited a kingdom in tatters, a Spain stripped of its colonies, its wealth, and its dignity. Ferdinand VII's legacy is a stain on history. In his 20 years of effective rule, he took Spain from a global powerhouse to a broken, backward nation. His obsession with vice didn't just destroy his wives and his court. It cost Spain its empire and its pride. This was a man who used a crown to indulge the worst parts of human nature. A predator who turned absolute power into absolute corruption. His story is a dark warning. No title, no bloodline can shield you from the consequences of a life built on cruelty. Thanks for joining us on WTF History, where we dig up the past's most jaw-dropping stories. If Ferdinand's reign left you shocked, drop a comment below and tell us what other wild historical figures you want us to cover. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious and watch out for those crowns. They don't always sit on noble heads.